Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I usually say welcome to Second Thursday at Venture Cafe, but we've gone rogue this month and we're doing something on Third Thursday. So we did programming as per usual last week, but are excited to have another session here as people, I think, are getting their heads around maybe with the SBI Road Tour showing up in St. Louis next week virtually.
Soon, yeah.
And thought we'd have one of our entrepreneurs in residence, Stephen Von Rump, comes share his expertise and specifically around NSF's SBIR process, as he's has a lot of experience working with companies getting ready to submit applications, and in the last year or so, NSF has made that process even more friendly and approachable. So I'll let Stephen tell you all the details, and then we'll look forward to arguing about, how solid NSF's SBIR program is. We've already got some conversation going. So Stephen, I'll let you take it away.
And, all right. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks everyone for joining. I sure wish that it would be like the old days of Venture Cafe, where we could be here in person at the front of the conference room with a glass of wine in my hand. I hope we can get back to those days soon, but not quite yet. So this is Venture Cafe third Thursday edition, like Monday Night Football, Thursday edition. All right, let me share the screen. Well, let me, even before that, let me just say something, my own background that's relevant to the topic at hand here today. So I'm an engineer by training, biomedical, electrical, software engineering. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've run several companies as CEO. I have several exits. And in particular, I have more than 10 years of preparing, submitting, winning, and executing federal grants, both here in the United States and also in Europe under the European Commission's Horizon 2020 program, which is roughly like the combination of NSF and NIH put together. And we actually, the startup that I ran in Europe that we founded there, we lived on these grants, for a number of years. So we were quite successful at applying for and winning and executing those. And then here back in the US, I support a number of companies in preparing grants for submission. And I also sit on evaluation panels at both the NIH and the NSF. So I'm the one, when you submit a grant, if it's in my space, digital health tech, I'm one of the guys who reads and scores and evaluates it and helps make the decision whether you get funded or not. So that's just a little bit about my background. And now let me share the screen here. And that is the view from my apartment in San Francisco of Alcatraz. Okay, so let me move this so I can see better. There we go. All right. Okay, so who wants to make a deal? Who's looking for free money? And by the way, we should define what we mean by free money. Are you walking away from free money? Well, maybe. That's what we hope to find out here today. But let me define what free money means. It means non-dilutive, that what these federal agencies give you is a grant, not an investment, and it gives you the opportunity to advance your company, sometimes significantly, without having to take dilutive funding. These grants are not free, believe me. I've been through enough of them to know, but still worthwhile, still worth the effort. So how do startups, which is really what we're talking about here today, how do startups get federal funding? We're going to talk about NSF and particularly the project pitch, but I think it's important to give you some background, some context on where all this comes from. Well, it comes from the Small Business Administration, the SBA, and the SBA supports two primary mechanisms or programs for federal funding, SBIR and STTR. We're going to talk a lot more about those in a moment, so we'll just let them to be random letters and acronyms for the moment. But there are two programs that support that. They're both targeted at small businesses, and especially startups that have innovative ideas. They're focused on early stage. These companies or the products, if it's not a new company, they typically have no revenue, or certainly not very much revenue. It could be a new company, or it could be established company, but with a new product. Either way, it doesn't matter. The point is it's innovative and it has strong commercial potential. And very importantly, they like high risk. They like startups. They like startup products because they are high risk. And therefore, they can be, if you're in that phase of your company's history, it can be a very good alternative to investors, because investors don't like risk. They want to find deals where it's, they can get in early, but yet still the company is taking a lot of risk out of the deal. But SBA and these programs and the agencies that support them, they like high risk. And so it can be a great alternative. Okay. And as I said, these are non-dilutive. These are grants, not investments. That's important. And I've seen companies go all the way to profitability on grants before and never took a dime of investor money. That can and does happen. All right. Who qualifies for a federal funding? Who can submit? It's very simple. You have to be a for-profit company. We'll talk about why that's true in a moment. Any legal structure, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, doesn't matter. You just have to be a registered company. You have to be U.S. owned and controlled. So if you're a startup, that's almost never a problem. If you're U.S. citizens or green card holders, you can, there's probably just a couple, 3 people in the company. You own at least 50% of the company, most likely 100%. So that's not generally a difficult requirement to meet. Less than 500 employees. I don't think that's an issue for anybody on this call. But again, they like startups. The vast majority of these awards go to companies with fewer than 10 people. You have to have access to appropriate R&D and facilities. Now, if you're inventing a new invasive medical device, like a venous thrombectomy, then yeah, that's a significant hurdle to have access to a wet lab and to live tissue samples and things like that. But if you are if you're making a new software as a service or a new mobile platform, a mobile app or a web app, then R&D facilities, appropriate R&D facilities, could be nothing more than computers and a cloud. And if that's all you need, and you've got some office space, which there are organizations around here in town that can help you get, often for free, then that's all you need to have the appropriate R&D facility. So that's not a big deal either. And all the project activities have to be performed in the U.S. You can't sub stuff out somewhere outside of the U.S. But I would imagine for the vast majority of us, these are easy requirements to make, because most of us are doing this anyway. What do they fund and what don't they fund? They fund product development, R&D activities. They fund development that's based strongly on innovation. They fund products that are high risk, high reward. They fund strong teams. And very importantly, and especially for NSF, they fund credible commercialization strategies. They want to know, no matter how great your idea is, they want to know that you can ultimately make money at it and be a profitable company. They don't fund fundamental research. These agencies do, but the programs we're talking about here, SBIR, STTR, they do not fund fundamental research. They do not fund routine development work. If you're just trying to make an add-on or a new product or a new addition to your existing product family, but it's not particularly innovative, it's not groundbreaking, that's not probably going to qualify. They do not fund commercial activities directly, sales, marketing, advertising, travel, for customer visits, things like that. But make no mistake, the ultimate goal of all of these projects and all of these grants, the ultimate goal is always commercialization. And why is that true? The goal is to foster innovation, yes, but the real goal is to create profitable companies. And that's why you have to be a for-profit company. You can't be a nonprofit. Now, why does the federal government care about profitable companies? Anybody? What do profitable companies do that unprofitable companies don't do?
Pay your taxes.
They pay taxes. That's exactly right. And that is, that's why they're really doing this. It's to stimulate the economy. And in fact, these programs, SBIR, SDTR, are assessed or are considered to be by the government highly profitable. In other words, the money that they put into it comes back many-fold in taxes. So that's the ultimate goal always. And of course, for-profit companies, that's our goal too, is to make money. All right, so what is an SBIR? What is an STTR? Why would you do one versus the other? SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research. It is meant for a company who is mostly going it alone. They are capable and desire to do most of the R&D on their own. The project manager, the person who's going to run this project if you win the grant, what's known as the principal investigator, is employed by the company. And this person, by the way, doesn't need a long string of letters after their name. They don't need to be a PhD or anything like that. They just have to have relevant expertise and relevant experience in the space, in the market space, and the technology space that you're going after. And as we said before, the company has control of the whatever R&D facilities are required.
Stephen, with that line item for project managers, the principal investigator, could you give a little bit more detail on that?
Well, this is the person very simply that runs the project.
Okay.
So, you know, their name is on it. They presumably have helped put the proposal together. And if you win, this is the person who is going to execute the project, who is going to manage the R&D. If it's a software development organization, this might be your head of, head of development.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
More often than not, it's the CEO of the company. If it's a startup, more often than not, it's the CEO of the company. But they have to be employed at least 51% by the company. So you can't just bring in a consultant or bring in somebody and pay them 25% salary and make them the PI. They've got to be a bona fide employee of the company. Okay. So then the STTR, Small Business Technology Transfer, this is still applied for by the company. In all cases, it's the startup that's applying for the grant. But what's different about this in SBIR is that the innovation has a strong academic component, and therefore the company has or needs to have a close partnership with the university or some other research institution. And the principal investigator, it doesn't have to be, but typically is employed by the university. So if you need credibility, as the PI needs to have credibility in the space, if it's a highly technical space and there's nobody in your company that has that credibility, that has that experience, then STTR might be the way to go. That way you can find an academic partner, and that person can become the PI, and they've got that long string of letters after their name, if that in fact is what is important in that case, and can actually be the PI of the project. And indeed, in the case of an STTR, at least 40% of the grant has to go to that academic partner, because they want to make sure that they're not just being brought on because of their name, that they actually have the resources they need to run the project. And again, the company still has to have control.
When you talk about being employed in specifically around the PI, does that literally mean a W-2, not just somebody you're paid, or does it
That's a good question. I think it means
does
a
employed
W-2.
mean paid is the question.
Yeah, I think it means a W-2, but I couldn't swear to that.
Okay.
But whatever salary they're making, 51% of it has to come from the company that's making the proposal.
They do not allow for consultants to act as PIs.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Norman.
Consultants for sure.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
that's what I mean. Like, you've got to be an employee of the company as opposed to a contractor.
Yeah. But I don't know, can you be an employee and still 1099? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But no, you cannot be a consultant.
And it couldn't be someone that just has equity. From what I heard you say, Stephen, it has to be someone who's drawing a salary.
That's correct. You have to be employed by the company. Now that salary could come from the grant,
Sure.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you could hire somebody on contingency that you win the grant, and then they come to work for the company, and they get paid by that grant 51%. That's okay. But they have to be a real operational employee.
Stephen, can you Vicky, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so no, that's okay. So, I'm CEO of my organization, but because of where we're at right now, I'm not drawing a salary. I'm running the show and everything else, but that doesn't mean I'm drawing a salary. So when you're saying 51% paid by the organization, would that be for the purposes of the budget for the grant or just in general everyday life?
Well, I guess both is true. I mean, if you're not drawing a salary, then it's not very hard to get 51% paid for by the company, right?
Truth.
But I would say in that case, it would mean that you're drawing 51%, or in fact, probably 100% of your salary, whatever you choose that to be in the budget, probably 100% of your salary is being funded by the grant.
Is that something that these grants will actually do? Because just let me state for the record that my career, I'm a grant writer for a living.
Mhm.
So, you know, I put together a lot of grants, I put together a lot of budgets, and it is unusual in my experience for any grant to pay 100% of someone's salary.
No, I didn't say that. I said that if you're not drawing a salary anyway, if all the salary that you're drawing is coming from the grant, it may amount to maybe, only 50% of what you're worth as a full-time employee. So whatever the grant allows you to draw, you can draw that. But if that's all you make, that's all you make.
But plus, you're going to want your budget to be tied to milestones of actually accomplishing the grant. So the chance
Right.
of all of the grant going to one person that is going to accomplish all of that is.
Yeah, and obviously you've got to justify whatever salary you put for yourself in the grant. But it certainly doesn't have to be 100% of what, in fact, it almost couldn't be 100% of what you're worth given your experience and accomplishment level. Okay. All right. What agencies participate in these programs? You can see I bolded 4 of them, which is where most of the activity is. Health and Human Services includes the National Institutes of Health. And of course, that's many organizations. Remember, it's National Institutes, plural, of Health.
Mhm.
And of course, the National Science Foundation. The vast majority of funding comes from those 4 organizations that I put in bold there. And they represent over $2.5 billion a year in funding. So there's a lot of money at stake here. St. Louis is a big medical town. Most of, I would say probably most of the money that comes to St. Louis for SBI or STTR grants comes from NIH. But NSF also, as you'll see in a moment, funds a lot of healthcare medical activities as well. So a lot of money comes from them as well.
Stephen,
Okay.
are you going to talk about phase 0 at all?
Phase 0, you mean the project pitch?
No, just in general, some of the agencies that have phase 0. I was just going to say one thing that about phase 0.
Yeah. No, I wasn't planning to because it's not part of SBIR and project pitch. And I frankly don't know that much about it, but if anybody
I was
else
just going to
wants
say
chime
one
in,
thing.
please do.
Yeah, if you do come across, some agencies have what they call phase 0, which is just support and helping.
Right.
And we, as a state of Missouri, qualify for that because we're an underrepresented state in SBIR awards.
There you go.
And so, it's for underrepresented entrepreneurs, but also underrepresented states that just don't have as much SBIR dollars awarded, and they're trying to get that up. So if you're ever looking at an agency and figuring that out, you see phase 0. I know Department of Energy has a really good phase 0 program.
Right.
And that we qualify as Missouri residents.
It's great input. Good, thank you. Okay, how much money is at stake? A phase 1, and it varies by agency, and there's lots of other factors, but a typical number would be $225,000 for a 6-month to 12-month project. The purpose of a phase 1 is to show basic feasibility of the innovation. Does it work, or could it work? Develop a working prototype, a proof of concept, a partial part of the product to show that it really does work. To establish preliminary customer validation. That's the purpose of a phase 1 project. A phase 2 project, again, can vary quite a bit depending on the circumstances, but typically $1.5 million, obviously quite a bit more money for a 2-year project. The goal there is to develop a commercial product, to validate it and whatever validation means for your market, and to create a commercialization strategy. Not to execute it, that's not part of the funding, but to develop it. And there's all kinds of supplements, extensions, exceptions that are available that can make those numbers, go considerably higher. As far as I know, there's no theoretical limit on how many grants a company can receive. I know companies that have received literally millions of dollars in federal funding. Okay, how hard is it to submit a proposal? Well, I guess Vicky probably knows something about that. And certainly I do, you know, as a writer. And I can also tell you, by the way, that sitting on these evaluation panels makes me a better writer because I understand how these proposals are viewed from the other side. And of course, being a writer also makes me a better reviewer because I understand how these things get put together and what they're intended to communicate. You've probably heard that it's hard to submit a proposal for these agencies. Yeah, it is pretty hard. The requirements are detailed. They're very strictly enforced. You can get disqualified on a technicality. There are company registrations that you have to go through. A phase 1 proposal can easily be 60+ pages. It has to include an R&D plan. It typically includes letters of support from potential customers, potential industry partners, potential investors, you know, and so on. And if you are paying for outside proposal support, it can easily exceed $10,000. A phase 2 proposal can be more than twice as long, 120, I've seen them 150 pages or more. It's everything that a phase 1 includes, but it also includes, very importantly, a commercialization plan, and that is very simply a detailed business plan. If you're getting outside support to put a proposal like that together, it can easily exceed $20,000. A good commercialization plan writer can the commercialization plan alone can easily go for more than $10,000 because it's a very specialized skill. There's just not that many people around who know how to do that well, you know, in a way that can help you win the bid. So, okay, well, that's not going to happen for most of us. That's way beyond the resources. So what do? That's where the National Science Foundation comes in. Because for many companies, it may very well be the best path. They like to make big bets. They like startups. They like high risk, high reward. And of all the other agencies, they have the strongest focus on commercialization, at least by my experience. Some may debate that, but from my experience, strongest focus on commercialization. And they've got a very broad spectrum of topics of things that they care about. As you can see here, manufacturing, biomedical, digital health is a huge part of what they do. You know, that's kind of my space. Education, hardware, internet, information technology, Internet of Things, smart health. They've got a very broad range of topics that they're interested in. And most importantly, what is different about the NSF than most of the other agencies is that you have the opportunity, in fact, they require you to prepare and present and submit a project pitch before you can even submit a phase 1 proposal. And why is that a good thing? Because the project pitch gives you a fast, easy way to know if a full phase 1 proposal is worth the effort. In fact, and as I said, you can't submit a phase 1 proposal without one. It's pretty simple, 1,500 words max. It's about 3 pages long. And when you submit it, you're guaranteed a response in 3 weeks. They'll tell you, yep, we like your idea. We invite you to submit a phase 1 proposal, or, you know, it could be a good idea, but here's what we think is missing. Here's what we think would make it bigger, more innovative, whatever it might be, you know, something for improvement. And if you are invited, you have 1 year to submit a proposal if you're accepted. So that's the project pitch. What does it look like? It's very simple, and anyone who's ever written a business plan before will find this very familiar. First of all, you have to describe the technology innovation. You have to describe the innovation, its origins, where did it come from, how did the company form, what is going to be your approach to developing this innovation, why is it high risk, why hasn't it been done before, why is it high impact. 500 words, can't say that much in 500 words, you got to get straight to the heart of it. Second section, technology objectives and challenges, also 500 words. How are you going to prove? What is it that you're going to do in this project? What is it you're going to build or develop? What software are you going to write that's going to prove that this innovation will work or that it could work? And how, in the process, you're going to reduce the risk of this product and of your company. And also, even in the project pitch format, you have to describe how the work's going to lead to a commercial product. Number 3, the market opportunity. 250 words, not much. In that 250 words, you have to describe everything you would do in an elevator pitch: the problem, the customer, the pain point, the unmet need. What's your near-term commercial focus? What's the big picture? You know, what's the home run, and what's your business model? And then finally, the company and the team, also 250 words. What's the status of your business? Who are your key team members? If you're partnering with an academic partner or some other major industry partner, what do they bring to the table? What are your strengths relative to the project? Who's the principal? Who's the intended principal investigator? What's your commercial expertise? 1,500 words total. And if you see this and you think that it sounds an awful lot like a standard biz plan summary, well, congratulations, you're right. That's exactly what it is. But it's something you can do over a weekend instead of investing months of time in a phase 1 proposal before you even know if your idea is in the right ballpark or not. This gives you a quick, easy, and cheap in terms of resources way to put your idea together and get it. Okay, so how do we start? Same way you start a company. I mean, this is no different than you would do if you're, just founding a company and trying to get your idea together. You start from the beginning. You start with the problem. You start with your customer discovery, your market analysis, your market product fit. You got to assemble a team, including some outside partners, most likely. Typically, you want an academic partner of some kind, just somebody that can lend credibility to the project. That doesn't always have to be the case, but typically. And I can tell you, it's just a business plan executive summary. And I can tell you, having sat on these panels for years, I can tell you that the reviewers who evaluate your proposal and make their score and make their recommendation and so on, they say exactly the same things that an investor says when they listen to a pitch, right? They say, you know what? I don't think this company really did their homework. They don't really understand their market, or they don't really understand their customer, or wow, they really get it. They really know exactly what's needed in this market. They know what to do. Or they're a solution looking for a problem. All the good, all the positive and negative things that investors, potential investors, say about a company's pitch and about their product and so on. These reviewers say exactly the same thing. So it's not surprising that this would look very much like exactly the same steps you would take when starting a company. There are resources locally here that can help. ITEN has people who understand this process. BioGenerator supports phase 1 and phase 2 proposals with real cash to pay for some of these outside resources. Both NSF and I recently learned NIH. I didn't know this, Melissa, maybe you did, but NIH also now has an ICOR program. So this is the customer discovery process. St. Louis University has a great ICOR program. Rolla has a good ICOR, a great ICOR program. Other places, there are local research universities here in town, most notably Washington University and St. Louis University, and including entrepreneur programs in those organizations. And if I may make a shameless plug, but hey, it's my presentation, so I can do whatever I want. ITEN has a new program called the Ideation Program, and that could be an excellent start for many companies to put together the ingredients they need to make a credible pitch. In this case, we're talking about the project pitch, but trust me, all the things you learn in these kinds of programs like ICOR and Ideation and Lean Stack and so on, these are exactly the elements that you need to put into a phase 1 proposal and even a phase 2 proposal, where the commercialization plan obviously is critical to the evaluation and success of the product. I can't tell you how many proposals that I read and evaluate, especially phase 2, where the principal investigator and the entire team has a long string of letters after the name. They have incredible credibility in this space. The technological innovation is fantastic. It's all breathtaking. But they haven't a clue what problem they're really trying to solve in the market. They didn't do the most basic of customer discovery. And it's sad to see that much talent, that much horsepower, that much experience, that much innovation, all for naught because they missed these basic steps about customer discovery, market analysis, market product fit. And there are certainly resources, excellent resources here in town who can help you do that. And I encourage you, if you haven't been through a similar process, to do that even before you submit the project pitch, because trust me, that background, that foundation will serve you well throughout the entire process. All right, but it'll never work for my company. It'll never work for my idea. Why? Because my idea isn't big enough. I don't, it's not, I'm just trying to start a nice business here and, get some customers and get some revenue. My idea is not out to change the world. Well, then I would say to you, make it bigger. There's an organization that I know that I've worked with that started out with the idea of making it easier and more efficient for doctors and nurses to get credentials when they go to work for a hospital. They have to be credentialed so that they are eligible to be reimbursed by the insurance providers. And they started out with a software platform that was going to make it easier to do that. But the idea became much bigger. And now they're not about making that process simpler and more efficient. They're about changing the whole nature of the relationship between clinicians and providers and payers. And ultimately to change the way healthcare is delivered and very importantly, how it's paid for in the United States. Well, now you have a big idea, certainly an idea that's big enough for NSF and in this case, NIH too, for that matter. So make it, if you don't think your idea is big enough, make it bigger. There's always a way to do that. My idea doesn't have enough technology innovation. And that's a big common mistake that I see people, organizations make. Yeah, I've got technology in my platform, but it's not really what it's about. Well, innovation, and again, I know this from personal experience, reading these reviews and seeing ones that win, that get funded. Innovation doesn't always have to be about technology. So, you don't have to invent the laser or an artificial heart or find a universal cure for cancer to have enough technology innovation. Sometimes it's about a different way of doing things. Sometimes it's about innovation in the process. Sometimes it's about making things better so that it's faster, cheaper, and has better outcomes in whatever your industry is. There was an example once of an organization that wanted to find a new way to build a more efficient physician's practice, outpatient practice, to make it more efficient, better. Not particularly a lot of technology, a lot of innovation in that you would think. But the architect asked them one day, by the way, where do you want the waiting rooms? And they said, nobody, who likes waiting rooms? Nobody likes waiting rooms. Patients don't like them. The staff, that sits at the front desk, they don't like them. Doctors don't like them. And the architect said, yeah, I understand. Nobody likes waiting rooms, but where would you like them? And they said, you know what? We're going to build an outpatient practice with no waiting rooms. Nobody likes them, so we're not going to have them. And suddenly now you have a major process innovation, workflow innovation. It's not really about technology. There was technology that supported how they implemented that, but they designed and built a prototype of and tested an outpatient practice with no waiting rooms, changed the way healthcare is delivered. So it doesn't always have to be about technology. There's another ITEN company that builds a home-based cardiac rehabilitation platform. Okay, they're not doing anything really remarkable technologically with this platform, but again, they're changing the way care is delivered. They're saying, why make these at-risk patients come into a clinic 3 times a week, and especially now in the COVID era, to expose themselves to everybody and exercise. Why make them do that when everything that they're doing with proper technology support they could do at home? Not particularly technology innovative, but it's process, it's a way of doing things, it's workflow. So make sure that you are properly defining innovation before you say that you don't have enough innovation to do that. I don't have a strong enough team. Well, okay, then make it stronger through partnerships. Not everybody has to be employed by the company. You can have partnerships, particularly in academia. They lend expertise, they lend credibility. And if you still don't know how to start, talk to people. There's plenty of talent around here in the local area that understand how these things work. Talk to researchers in your area. Talk to the Scandalera Center, the Entrepreneurial Center at Washington University. Talk to the offices of technology management at WashU and SLU. They have all kinds of technology that they would love to see find a home and become commercial, but there's nobody in the academic world there that knows how to do that, perhaps. And so they're looking for people who are willing to take that technology and bring it out into the commercial world. So talk to people, get ideas. And then finally, a possible timeline to success. This is obviously made up, but it gives you an idea of how far you could really go with this. So let's say at the start, you've done your inspiration and ideation. You've been through the ITEN Eureka program, perhaps, maybe the SLU I-Core program, and you've got your initial idea and product development. Then you do your NSF project pitch and you get accepted. And from there, you start working on a phase 1 project proposal. Maybe you get support from Biogenerator. They provide consulting services to help you in your writing. They even provide a mock review panel that evaluates your proposal just as if it were the real thing and gives you feedback on that. So you execute the phase 1, and maybe after the phase 1, maybe you've got enough of it, an MVP, you can actually get some revenue, and that's fine. It's fine with the NSF and these other SBI organizations. They don't mind that at all if there's still innovation to be done, in the project. So now you move on to a phase 2 project, a 2-year program. Again, maybe you get Biogenerator support for that. They do that. They'll even pay, in some circumstances, they'll even pay for the commercialization writer. And then finally, your full commercial launch. And then at that point now, then you're ready to take on outside venture capital investment. Or are you? Do you even need it at that point? Maybe you do. And if you do, you're now in a far stronger position than if you had asked for that support way back, at phase 1 or even before phase 1, and certainly before you have revenue. Now you're coming with a proven product and a proven market with, real revenue and all the risk, certainly all the technology risk taken out of it, and even much of the market acceptance risk taken out of it. You're in a far stronger position now to get that capital on your terms. And some companies, turns out they never even needed it at all. They've got enough. They got enough lift from the grants to be able to carry them, and especially from the indirect funding that comes from those grants, they get enough lift to carry them all the way through, and it can and does happen. So that's where this could end up, and it all starts, at least in the case of the National Science Foundation, it starts with that project pitch. So there's lots of different ways this can go, many different paths, but I think the most important thing, if there's one thought that I want to leave you with, it's that make sure if you're going for federal funding, and by the way, this should be true anyway, think big and focus on the basics. Panel reviewers, again, they all say the same things. They talk about the problem, the solution, the market, the team, and so on. So do your homework on the basics and think big.
Cool. Well, Stephen, we got some questions coming in that I thought I'll just read out to you if you want to take a stab at them. It says, are there any programs that consider lower risk innovations that will serve smaller markets more near commercial development than basic R&D? I
don't, the federal government is obviously a huge entity.
Yeah.
And who knows, what programs might exist in, various niches and so on. I'm sure that the SBA has other programs that are more focused on, just getting a company up on its feet and getting into profitability. I'm guessing that most of those kind of programs are not happening at the federal level, but they're happening at the state and the local level, even though it may be federal money that ultimately funds them. But I'm just, SBA loans, certainly, those exist as well. But I'm not an expert in that area, so I don't want to say any more than that. But if anybody else knows anything more about that, please chime in.
Yeah. And there may be, there's some federal money out now in general because of the CARES Act and other COVID focused things that are addressing all levels of, I think, small business support.
Yeah, and certainly COVID has certainly expanded those opportunities. Half the proposals that I evaluate these days are COVID related.
Okay, next question says, can you give examples of academic partners for SBIR grants?
Sure. The company that I mentioned that has the home-based cardiac rehab program, their academic partner is a professor at St. Louis University who helped them put together the initial small-scale clinical trial that they did at SLU Hospital. That's who they connected with. He was not the principal investigator in their application, but he was, he was listed as a key partner. I would say almost all the projects, companies that I support for SBIR or STTR grants, that offhand, I can't think of one that didn't have an academic partner. And since I've supported ones local, those partners, as far as I can remember, in all cases came from either WashU or SLU.
I know a few, still has a few, depending on the area that you're in. There's
yes, and perhaps even Lindenwood, again, depending on the area of innovation.
Yep, and I think the research enabled platform that UMSL is piloting that can also help connect researchers or connect companies with researchers that have bandwidth for these sorts of things. A couple of questions about logistics on the, like the 1,500 words, is that text only, or can you put links and figures into that, or is it only text? And do you have to set up a company first before applying for project pitch, or can you just propose that in the project pitch?
I've never seen one. I've never explicitly read that you can't put pictures and graphics, but I've never seen one with graphics. So I'm going to say the answer is no, but I can check on that to make sure. And you, it's funny, for all the time I spend on this.
So
what my experience is not necessarily what the rule is. All the ones I know of have been already companies, LLCs,
so you do
typically.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the project pitch. I mean, when you're at the phase 1 level, you have to have a DUNS number, a SAMS registration, certainly, all of those federal registrations. And so you would have to have the entity by then. But yeah, I wasn't sure on the project pitch.
I've never heard that as a requirement. I've never heard that as a requirement for a project pitch, because if they're trying to make it easy and give you basic understanding, are you in the right ballpark or not? If they're trying to make it easy, why would they make you set up a company just to ask that question? So I'll have to look that one up because I don't know for sure, but I think the answer is no, you don't have to be a company for the project pitch.
Yeah, I don't believe that you need it for the project pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, we did one ourselves in my company, but I don't believe you need it there. But once you actually get to the actual phase 1 pitch or the phase 1 proposal, you absolutely have to have it. They won't let you in the door without it.
For sure.
And you have to have done all your registrations. So if you're thinking about it, when you sit at that project pitch, just start getting those registrations, because some of those can take a number of weeks or months even to get the turnaround you need from a DUNS and SAM and all of that perspective. Somebody would ask.
By the way, one advantage of NSF over NIH has hard deadlines 3 times a year for SBIR, STTR proposals. NSF has a kind of a rolling deadline. You can submit, other than Christmas, the last couple weeks of December, you can pretty much submit any time. So it's according to your, what works for your company and your timing.
There's a question about when you said, can you describe what exactly is meant by preliminary customer validation during phase 1? Is this customer validation only related directly to the proof of concept?
I would say it could be both. It could be either or both. So in other words, getting your product, no matter how crude proof of concept it might be, maybe a long way from an MVP, but still getting it into the hands of a real customer and getting real feedback on it, what they like and don't like. That's always powerful in a proposal. And then of course, demonstrating that you understand the larger market and that you understand the problem, what they're looking for, and why your product is a good fit for that. That certainly is compelling too in these proposals. So I think the answer is both.
And one of the questions that is it just talking about other resources, and I just wanted to throw out there that SBDC, one of our friends in the ecosystem, the Small Business Development Center, they have them all across the country, but we've got a great group here in St. Louis, and they actually receive, the last couple of years have received and hopefully will continue to, a small pot of money to help with grant writing through the FAST program. So if you, as Stephen pointed out, it can get a little bit expensive, but if you've done a project pitch, so they already know that, NSF wants to hear more, it's going to put you much more competitive in getting those limited funds and getting help from FAST through the SBDC.
Right.
And so they can connect you with a grant writer. You have to do the guts of what the technical approach is, because what they're going to help you with is how to structure the wording and speak according to the agency that you are
they know how to speak the language, and that's extremely important.
And I also see that people have put a link in for SLU's, where you can go and look for academic partners that SLU offers. And again, on the SBIR, you had said, I think isn't it 2/3 of the grant has to go to the small business, but that means 1/3 of it can go to an academic partner or an outside consultant that sort of adds that academic rigor.
Correct.
You don't have that.
Yeah, you can spend money on outside consultants, on academic partners, absolutely.
And also SBIR.gov is a great starting point to. They've actually in the middle of overhauling that, and I think making it more user friendly. It can help get you. They have a great set of tutorials on everything you'd ever want to know about applying for federal money, and connecting you through to the specific agency, looking at priorities of those agencies. And also a great thing is to look at who they've given money to. So you can look at their priorities or what their certain call for proposals are saying, but a good indicator of what they'll fund is what they've funded in the past, the types of projects they've funded in the past and what's been successful. So you can get all that. Huh?
I just wanted to mention that at the downtown branch of the St. Louis Library, I have a good buddy who works in that particular area, and they actually have software where you can go in and look it up and see who's funded what, how much they funded, what projects they funded, if it's in the same area or a type of nonprofit or business or whatever that you're looking for funding. So those resources are available for free. So you don't have to worry about spending a whole bunch of money just to access that information.
Yeah. And also in addition to the SBIR.gov, which is obviously, put together by the SBIR, SBA government. So it's a lot of information, but it's, what they want to put forward. There's also SBIR Land, which is a privately put together, it was actually funded by them to the SBA to put it together, but it's privately funded and can be a little bit more, lots of different opinions and information and perspectives on strategies and on resources. in addition to what you can get off of the sbir.gov site. But
Yep.
we've got a couple more minutes. I think they're going to let us keep it right up until 5, keep the room. So,
Okay.
and I'll throw the links to the things I just put in here. And then I'll throw my my email address. So if there's things we didn't answer or things that you want me to follow up with, I can connect you to folks. But I also wanted to give a little bit of a plug to the SBIR road tour that I mentioned briefly at the beginning. That is something that comes through town every few years, and this year was one of our years, and they're still doing it virtually. But that it's a great opportunity to hear all about, from different agencies, and you can also sign up for one-on-one meetings. They may be full at this point, but this is where you hear directly from the agency program directors themselves. So you could really get, deep dive
Great.
information.
Yeah, I definitely encourage you to attend that if you have any interest at all in this. Jack Scatizzi, the executive director of the Missouri Technology Council, will be speaking. He's a former ITEN entrepreneur in residence, by the way. And Harry Rader from BioGenerator will also be speaking. BioGenerator, thanks in no small part to Harry's efforts, they have a tremendous success record, percentage of proposals that they support that go on to actually win.
And Stephen, so Bronwyn asks, so what would you recommend are next steps? We've gotten a lot of information today, and what are the things you would say are the next steps someone should take leaving today?
I would say if you're, find somebody that understands your space, that also has some experience, with federal funding, whatever that might be. Find somebody that understands that space and just talk to them. Just have a conversation. Here's my idea. If you were the NSF evaluator, reading a 3-page project pitch, what would you think? Start from there. And even though the initial answer may be, no, this wouldn't qualify, it doesn't mean that there's not a good idea in there somewhere. It just maybe needs to be brought out in a different way. It needs to be made bigger, more innovative, et cetera. Just find people that know about this stuff and just go talk to them.
And you can submit once or twice per cycle. I know you can't submit until you hear back again, but how many times per cycle can you submit?
Don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I have read that. It's
I know you have to wait till you hear.
Yeah.
But
I'm not so sure that, there are 4 cycles in theory that NSF has. As far as I know, you could submit 4 times.
Yeah, I know you can at least submit each
Yeah, but don't take that to the bank. I'm not sure about that.
But you can also, and because you hear back within 3 weeks. So it's a very quick response. And it's a very clear process when you go to their website too, so you can get the details there.
Yeah, the form you can literally you can write the text in a separate document, and then you can submit it online. You can go and just copy and paste it into the, into their form.
Vicky just dropped the FAQ from NSF into the chat too. So in the chat is a lot of links. I'll give people a second if they want to click on things and open pages.
Yeah.
But this session is obviously being recorded like all Venture Cafe sessions, and will be available on the Venture Cafe YouTube and the ITEN YouTube channels in the next couple of days. So you can reference this again if you need to. And I think, did I end up putting my, no, I don't think I did. Okay, I'm putting my email in here. People need to reach out to me, and I can, even if I don't know the answer, I can try to help guide you to the right people. And the SBDC link for the road tour is in there, and they're also, like I said, the folks that have the FAST money, which is the grant writing support. that they offer. And you can reach out to them there for that as well. So we've got another minute if we have any last questions or
otherwise it's almost time for that glass of wine.
Oh my, there. Cheers, everyone.
Or beer, if you prefer.
But no, I really appreciate everybody's great questions and enthusiasm.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
And it's been, it's a lot to take in. I get it. And I've been there on your side of the deal, try and apply for these things. But I've also, we've also happy to help people sort of navigate that all, including help if you're trying to figure out exactly what registrations you need. Because everybody's going to need SAM and some of the general ones, but like, for example, Department of Energy, you need 13 different things to sign up for.
Right.
So that's one thing. If somebody asked what to do now, if you're considering federal money, just get those things knocked out.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no reason to miss a deadline of an application because you are waiting for your SAM number to come in or your.
Right. Again, none of that's required for the project pitch. Project pitch is meant to be very low risk.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. So, well, thanks so much, everybody. And thanks for the great questions, and reach out if you need any additional help, and click on all the great links in the chat while it's still there. And we'll see everybody at Second Thursday. And again, I want to just give one last plug for our Eureka program. It's a ideation brand new program. It's available free of charge to ITEN companies, thanks to the support of Lindenwood University. So go to our website. I also put that in the chat, and check it out, and love to help you make sure you've got problem solution fit and off to a great start. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. Take care. Stay safe, stay well.